Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inshallah, we're going to start with our next class. We're very, very excited and honored and privileged to have Dr. Umar Farooq Abdullah here with us. He just arrived late last night. Dr. Umar does not like long introductions, and mashallah, his full bio is in your program booklet. I definitely recommend you check it out. Very briefly for our purposes, I have to say, I studied at Cornell University, and Dr. Umar came there many, many years before I did to do his PhD, and I was honored to bring him back years later when I was there. Dr. Umar started his graduate work at Cornell. He ultimately completed it in Islamic Studies from the University of Chicago. He wrote his dissertation on the origins of Islamic law. The title of it's called Malik's Concept of Amal in Light of Maliki Legal Theory, which has recently been published. It's a fantastic, fantastic piece of scholarship. Dr. Umar has studied extensively throughout the Muslim world. He's also taught extensively, mashallah, and traveled extensively throughout the Muslim world, including the Middle East, Europe, the United States, and Africa. He's a gem to the Muslim community. He recently was with the Nawawi Foundation and with Dar al-Qasim, both in Chicago. And without further ado, inshallah, we invite Dr. Umar. Bismillah.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. This is the first session on secrets of silence and speech. I'm taking what I say largely from Imam al-Ghazali's Ihya Ulum al-Din, and this is from what he calls Afatul Lisan, the catastrophes of the tongue, or the problems of the tongue. I never found a good English translation for that. There is a translation by Fazlul Kareem, who is a Pakistani scholar, but it's very incomplete and often abridges and often doesn't follow the text closely. So you can look at it if you like. In any case, now this is what we will be talking about in the days ahead. Imam al-Ghazali begins this discussion by reminding us of the unique greatness and the miraculous qualities of speech. And he points out to us that God gave us this gift which distinguishes us from all animals. And this is the gift of articulate speech, al-bayan. The angels have this gift, the jinn, the spirits who are quite like us, they have this gift, but animals don't have it, the gift of articulate speech. In the animal kingdom, which includes also insects and fishes, animals can communicate and they can indicate to you what they feel. They can indicate to you their disposition, whether they're hungry, whether they're full, whether they're frightened, whether they're happy. Animals definitely have that, and they can also communicate knowledge. Ants do that very well, but they don't have the gift of articulate speech, which is such a conspicuous part of the reality of the human being and of human society. Our tongues, and of course we refer to the tongue metaphorically as the symbol of the gift of articulate speech, because we do that with our tongues. We do it, of course, with many other things as well, in our brains and in other parts of our body, but when we refer to the tongue, we're really referring to the gift of articulate speech that the human being has been given. And our tongues, Imam al-Ghazali stresses, are the great mediators or intermediators between ourselves and the infinite blessings that are at our hands and the infinite wisdom and knowledge that we as human beings are capable of. Imam al-Ghazali emphasizes that God created human beings good. and everything about us was created to be good and to be wholesome. All human faculties, even things like carnal appetites and anger, these are inherently good. And that good which is in them comes out when they're put in the right place, when they're used properly, when they're controlled by the heart, the intellect, the spirit, in the light of prophetic guidance. But of all human faculties, the faculty of articulate speech, al-bayan, is one of the ones that we have to pay the most attention to, because of the fact that it is capable of such good, just as it is also capable of such harm. And because it's something that is essential to our natures, and for most of us, relatively easy to use, then we have to also be very careful about how we use it, because of the fact that often we do so in a way that is unthinking. Articulate speech, when we use it properly, it lifts us up to be like the angels, who also, of course, have that gift. But when you combine with that everything that you bring with you as the son or the daughter of Adam from the elemental world, the world of the animals and the minerals and the plants, then this transformative gift of speech is what makes you potentially greater than the angels and gives you a role to play in society, in your family, in society, in this world, and in the cosmos that is second to no other creature that God created. The gift of articulate speech is the gift that goes with you to the garden. And of all the blessings of the garden, of all the gifts of paradise, one of the ones that we enjoy the most and benefit from the most will be articulate speech. We will hear the speech of God. And the most beautiful moment in your existence to this point has been when you heard it a long time ago. Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And that manifestation of God to you and to me and to all of us, imprinted upon our souls, knowledge that is beyond words, beauty that is connected to truth and virtue, and other things that make us capable of being truly human and of being the vicegerents of God on earth, which is a huge role to play and which is a trust that you must never forget. As Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi says, you can forget everything else. If you never forget that you carry the trust that the mountains and the earth and the heavens refuse to carry, you're all right. And if you forget that and you remember everything else, your life is a catastrophe. So this is the great secret, and may we live that secret and never forget it. But in the garden, there is no hurtful speech, no harmful speech, no unpleasant speech. There is no false speech, empty speech, meaningless speech. In the garden, there is no laghu, there is no laghiya, there is no ta'thim. These are among the words that Allah uses when He speaks about the perfect speech that the believers are given in the garden among human beings, the jinn and the angels. And of course, if we use speech correctly, then it is also among the greatest joys that we have on earth as well. And of course, here in the blessed company of Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, may Allah give us the fullness of his blessing, and those of the great saints around him, like Sadruddin Qunawi and Shams Tabrizi. These were great saints, beyond measure. But especially in the case of Maulana Jalaluddin, the gift that he was given to unlock all other gifts was the gift of speech. Beautiful, precious speech that was able to unlock treasures that continue to inspire and to guide people to this day. We must train ourselves to be like that. We must be very conscious of how we use our tongues. We've got to wake up to that. And we have to be thankful to God that He gave us this paradisial gift, this Adamic gift, which is the secret to our being. And in this, when we speak, we want to always walk in the shade of the Quran. And of course, we love the Quran, we memorize the Quran, we contemplate the Quran, but also we learn from the Quran the secrets of speech, the paradigms of speech, the standards of speech. And in addition to that, of course, there are the blessed words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Imam al-Ghazali says the Prophet was given jawahir al-hikami qata'an wa jawami' al-kalimi wa la ya'rifu ma tahta ahati kalimatihi min bihar al-ma'ani illa khawas al-ulama. So he says the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was given beyond any doubt precious jewels of wisdom and concise words to express them that brought together all knowledge. No one knows the seas of the oceans of meanings that lie hidden under each of the individual words that the Prophet spoke, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, except for the most extraordinary of scholars, men and women. And they never cease to be amazed by how beautiful these words are. And this is true of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of all the messengers, and it's true also of the awliya, who are those men and women like you, who seek to be heirs of the messengers and the prophets. And one of the marks of the awliya that so often occurs with them is that they are given precious gifts of speech, beautiful words that unlock hearts and convey meanings. We are speech creatures, therefore. We're also heart creatures. We are creatures of the heart. We are creatures of the spirit. We are creatures of the intellect. And we are elemental creatures made from the elements of the mineral world, the plant world, and the animal world. But again, above all, we are speech creatures. This is our native zone. This is our essential element. And we need to emphasize here what a miracle language is and the gift of speech. There's nothing arbitrary, there is nothing accidental, and there is nothing evolutionary in the sense of the evolutionist understanding of that word about speech. Speech is always a miracle. Our speech organs, everything connected with them, our mental capacities that enable us to speak, to learn to speak to others, to understand speech. These are perfectly, miraculously and minutely designed. And in fact, they disprove, among many other things, the pseudo-metaphysics of evolutionism. For example, the more ancient the human tongue, the more precious the treasury it contains. And although we don't know a great deal about ancient tongues because most of them were never written down, but whenever we find a tongue that takes us back into the ancient past, at least 7,000 years or 10,000 years, like Old Iranian or like Sanskrit, these are incredible tongues. And there are other ones like that as well among various peoples of the world. And among those ancient tongues that have been preserved is the Arabic language. And you should know that in the family to which Arabic belongs, which is called Afro-Asian, we used to call it Hamitic Semitic, Arabic stands at the most ancient level of every single tongue in that family. Arabic is much more ancient than Babylonian, or Akkadian, or Assyrian, or the language of the pharaohs of Egypt, which all belong to that family. And how could that be? Why is that? Well, maybe if we have questions, we could talk about that, because it's a very interesting story. But the Arabic language is an ancient, ancient tongue. And if we compare it with the other ancient tongues that belong to its family, like those that I mentioned, then we can say that easily the Arabic tongue as spoken by the Blessed Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1,400 and so many years ago was probably spoken by his people for at least 10,000 years before that. So that takes us back into a period which historians regard to be very, very ancient. So what were those people like? Those were not barbarians. Those were not ignorant people. Those were people simply because they possessed the gift of this language, no doubt in the light of prophecy, which would be pre-Abrahamic prophecy, that they were capable of amazing things. This is one of the reasons why Arnold Toynbee, who is a person who is worthy of our study as a group, contends that the ancient human beings, the prehistorical human beings of what is rudely called the Old Stone Age, we have to be very careful about these plastic words we're given, because they're usually counterfeit. But, that those people were the best and the most intelligent and the most spiritually developed. And Arnold Toynbee doesn't say that lightly. He says that on the basis of very careful study and thought. And of course, that's what we believe, and that's what most traditions believe. Thullatun min al-awwalin. There are a lot of these muqarrabin, sabiqeen, the people brought close to God, who precede all others, who outrace them in the first generations, and a few of the later generations like our own. So the history of human beings is a history of devolution and demolition. It's not the other way around. We did not evolve the ability to speak. That's really an obscene idea and has no merit whatsoever. Nevertheless, if you want to make human beings human, you've got to teach them how to speak. And you have to give them words that are not counterfeit, words that are not plastic, words that are real, words that are adequate. And all of our dictionaries actually contain words like that, but we don't learn from the dictionaries anymore. And we play with language and we abuse language all the time. If you want to destroy a people and enslave a people, destroy their language. And then basically you will be able to do with them anything that you want. Most people today, in the West and in the world, and even among our own ranks as Muslims, can't think. They can't reflect. And this is because they don't have the words to do it. They don't have the cognitive frames to do it. They don't know what you need to have to say and to think to unlock these secrets. If you want to give people freedom and you want to make them great, then you've got to give them language. But it's got to be real. And we ask God, since we are English speakers and we are Muslims, that He enable us to make this English language the vehicle of truth and of Islam. And that's true of French and German and any other language that we use. We have got to get these languages in order, just as our predecessors did with Turkish, or with Urdu, or with Persian, or with Mandinka, or with other great languages of our past. We said before that all of our faculties are created good. Most of those faculties, like eating, drinking, sexual appetite, are biological, very biological. Again, they're created to be good if they're used properly. But they are instinctual and they have an animal aspect to them. And this is where speech is very different, because speech is a lordly attribute. It is a lordly attribute. That's why it distinguishes us from the mineral and the plant and the animal kingdom. And you have 7 lordly attributes. And you'll be asked about them on the day of judgment. Sight, you can see. Hearing, you can hear. Knowledge, you can think. Life, which is the foundation of all of that. And then you have will, the ability to make choices, the ability to make things, that I will make a cup that is shaped like this, and the glassmaker can then make it. That's will. Power. You are given the ability to intervene in creation and to make things like this cup, this glass, or this cane, or a million other things. Power. And then speech. And speech is a lordly attribute. And of all of our lordly attributes, in many ways, it is the king, because it is the one that enables us to coordinate and develop all these others. If we use speech as well as these other lordly attributes, which are again what? Life, knowledge, will, power, hearing, seeing, and speech, the great 7. If you use them correctly and carefully, then you are able to soar and to become the highest of the high. And when we betray them and we misuse them, then we don't become animals. The animal human being is not that bad. We become lower than the animals. We become demonic. And we become maybe even less than that, because unfortunately we are even capable of a demonic reality that is worse than Satan himself and the demons. So speech then is a sword with 2 edges, and you want to be careful not to cut yourself with it. It has a good edge, which is the power of speech to unlock and to bring infinite good. And again, this is one of the great gifts that Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi is given. And you really cannot imagine what a great gift was given to him. His words are intoxicating. The Persian language has always been one of the greatest of all Sunni languages. Every Persian poet was a Sunni. And the things that Jalaluddin does with that language alone make it worth your while to learn Persian. An extremely beautiful tongue. But what he does with that, you can only be in awe of, and that's because God gave it to him as a gift. Speech enables us to do many things, like to declare belief, right? La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, a speech act. We know the story of the man who had to free a believing slave. And so he found this girl who was an African, Nubian, Ethiopian, and she either had a speech defect or she was dumb, meaning that she couldn't speak, or mute. And so he doesn't really know if she's a believer or not because she can't say it. And so therefore he brought her to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet asked her, "Where is Allah?" Or in other transmissions, "What is Allah?" or "Who is Allah?" That hadith has many transmissions. And then she points to the sky, because she can't speak. Because this is a very unusual type of behavior. And then the Prophet asks her, "And who am I?" So she's a believer. So he says, you can free her. But she doesn't have the gift of speech. Precious angel that she is. You have that gift. And this gift then easily enables you to declare words that are more precious than all the world. The great prophet Solomon, may Allah be pleased with him, to whom God gave an earthly kingdom that no one will have anything like, including control over the jinn and the animals, was once in a great procession with the jinn, with the human beings who were under his control. Tremendous wealth. They say the birds were flying above him, even shading him. And one of the righteous men of the children of Israel said, "Son of David," as he's Solomon, the son of David, "what a great kingdom you have indeed been given. No human being has been given the likes of it." And Solomon said to the righteous man of the children of Israel, he said, "What the son of David has been given," meaning Solomon, "is not worth a single tasbihah, a single word of the glorification of God from the likes of you. You say Subhanallah, and that is worth more than the entire kingdom that was given to Solomon." But what does that tell you about the words? What does that tell you about the secret, the cosmic secrets that are there in the speech? Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, may Allah bless us by being in his presence, in his holy city. This is a holy city. If you can't feel that, then I hope you feel it before you leave. This is a holy city. And that's because al-makanu bil-makin, the place is always judged by the one who's there. And that is Maulana Jalaluddin and Shams Tabrizi and Sadruddin Qunawi and many other awliya. So it makes it a very special place, one of the bastions of truth in the world forever. And the people of Konya are not like other people. The people of Konya are very special. The Turks are very special. Muslims are very special. But people who come from cities like this, they are not ordinary, because they are the guests of a great host. But Maulana Jalaluddin, he says, God gives you good words. This is in a poem called Al-Kalimu Tayyiba, the good words. And he means, La ilaha illallah. Is there any better word? No. That's the most beautiful word of all. And he said, the fragrant scent of these words you speak mounts up to heaven. The breaths of praise that come out of your mouth soar up like angels as a gift to God. You give him that gift. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar. May Allah enable us to be unveiled by those words and to understand how great they are. And this creates for you a special place in the eternal abode. And then God answers you with even more beautiful words. This is also part of your secret as the son of Adam, that when you mention God, and we are here to mention God, this is a majlis of dhikr. That's what we're doing. What are we talking about? God. That's what we're talking about, Allah. And he mentions your name there, and your name, and my name. And the angels write it down. And if you could hear the scratch of the pen, you would die of ecstasy. Not to mention if you could hear the words or see what is written. So who are you, son of Adam, daughter of Adam? What powers you were given. You mention God, and he mentions you above the seventh heaven, and the beautiful words he gave you to send up to him as a gift from him to him. They come back as an even greater gift. And they unlock in you even greater secrets. So be aware of that. Wake up to that. God answers you with even more beautiful words. Don't you remember the nights when you spoke to God and you cried and there was no veil between you that night? He gave you that gift, and he gave you back a gift that was even greater. So speech, dhikr, invocation, this is a powerful thing. This is a powerful thing. And as a recompense to that, and a reward for that, and a mercy, then God gives you even greater words, even greater ways of ascent. And again, the epitome of that for us here in this blessed city is Maulana Jalaluddin. May you know that, and may you come to know that even better. We ask God then with even more beautiful words, and they might be exactly the same, but they're not the same, because now they have in them something from you that they didn't have before. Some purity, some sincerity, some truthfulness, some presence that you didn't have before. And this goes on without rest, without ceasing, especially for men and women of God, men and women of the spiritual path. And it draws you closer and closer, and it makes you go higher and higher. Until your soul, Maulana Jalaluddin says, finally comes home. Where's your home? The garden. Where were you created? In the garden. You don't belong here. You are here in a foreign place, and you're an alien here. Your home is the garden, and may we all go home. That's where we belong. This is not our home, and there's another place which is not our home either. And it becomes the abode of those who totally forgot their home and turned their backs on everything it stands for. So you come home finally. May Allah join us all in the garden, and may He make our life in this world a perpetual garden of the knowledge of God. So, language is an amazing thing. And one of the things that we can talk about, probably we shouldn't talk about it much because we want to cover some territory, is that, words have to be real. Words have got to be right. Arabic words are like that, but you've got to learn them. Persian words are like that. Why? Because they had smiths like Hafiz and Sa'di and Sana'i and Jalaluddin Rumi and Firdausi. These were smiths, wordsmiths. And in English, you be a smith too. You know, and English is a beautiful language, by the way. And English is a blessed language. I would be happy to explain that to you at another time. Don't take this language lightly. It's a great tongue. So is French, so is Spanish, so is German, so is Russian. These are languages all rooted in primordial humanity. And we as Muslims have to use them the way that your fathers and forefathers used Urdu or Bengali or Punjabi and made these into great languages. Great languages. Wordsmithing. And that's actually in Saxon what poetry is. Working with words, smithing words, taking words to the forge with the hammer and making words that can fly. So, speech then is very important. And one of the things about real words, not plastic words, most of the words that we are bombarded with today are counterfeit. They are plastic. They don't have a denotation. Nature. What in the world is nature? Has a beginning? Does it have an end? Does it have a will? Does it have a power? Does it have a persona? Would you please tell me what you mean by this word? It is a filler for God. Okay? It is a cop-out. And many of our words are that way. Words we use every day. So we have got to wake up also to the way we use words and what we mean by words. But also, true words, they don't have cognitive closure. And we don't want to go into that in great detail, but they are apertures, they are openings that have connotation. Okay, they have connotation, they have adequate real meaning, but then they open up and open up and open up and take you to places where you could have never gone otherwise. So speech, when we use speech as speech creatures that is real, conveys meanings that you and I can never fully grasp, at least not right now. Imam al-Ghazali says, there is nothing that exists, there is nothing that does not exist, there is nothing real, there is nothing imagined and unreal. There is nothing created, there's not even the creator. But that speech has the ability to access that thing or that being, that reality or unreality about which we speak. To affirm it, to deny it, to unlock its secrets or to lock its secrets up, to know it. And you have the ability to know. You are a subject and this world is an object. But did you know that you were its brother? Did you know that you were its sister? Imam Jalaluddin will tell you about that, and many of the other great saints will tell you about that. That's our tradition. That's our sound metaphysics, that you are a microcosm, a little world. And this around you is a macrocosm, the big world. And you are its blueprint, and it is your blueprint. Islamic science, which was real science, we studied in order to learn about ourselves. Because if I study about water respectfully and correctly, I learn about my own self. Okay, because we are blueprints of this world. And so although there is subject-object at this level, because of my kinship, relationship with the blade of grass, I can actually know it. I can know it completely. That's very important. And these are among the major confusions of the modernists and the postmodernists, who live in a world of dualism from which there is no escape. Nothing comes under the heading of knowledge, real knowledge, but that it also comes under the heading of speech, real speech. And one of the things about real speech is supreme adequacy, supremely adequate. Okay, and this is the language we use, whether in Arabic, Persian, Urdu, English, Spanish, or whatever it may be. Imam Jalaluddin, Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, he says in a poem, ripeness is all. He says, since you cannot bear the unveiled light of God, you can't bear it, neither can I. We would disappear. The Prophet ﷺ said that between us and God are 70,000 veils of dark and light, of light and darkness. If you heard any of them rustle, you would cease to exist. You might come back. We call that fana. And you might come back, and then you would be something else. You would be something greater. Although you need help in that, you don't dare embark on a journey like that on your own. But these are veils of majesty and beauty. 70,000. You cannot bear that light. When Gabriel, on the night of the Ascension, the Mi'raj, brings the Blessed Prophet, the most perfect of all created beings, without any question, to the furthest lote tree, Sidrat al-Muntaha, he can't go further, because he says, between me and God are 70 veils of light and darkness. If I heard any of them rustle, I would cease to exist. 70, not 70,000. And then the Prophet goes with Rafraf, and he comes into the presence of God. Okay? But you can't bear the unveiled light. So drink in the words of wisdom that God has given you. In the Quran, in the Hadith, in the great awliya, in the Mathnawi of Maulana Jalaluddin. Drink in the words of wisdom. These were gifts because their light is veiled. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The light that is veiled in those precious words is enough to extinguish all created being. And yet it unveils itself to you little by little, from the time that you were a little girl and memorized it for the first time, or a little boy. And that light is then unveiled more and more and more. And by absorbing the divine, prophetic, and spiritual truth that is in these perfect words, kalimatun tammat, perfect words, these good words, this dhikr, invocation with fikr, then you are gradually brought to what? Unveiling, which is that the light is given to you. Your heart is expanded. Your heart becomes pure. Your heart has in it no place for anything else but God. And then the light comes little by little by little until you are unveiled. And then you become a miracle on earth. And you become a source of mercy and goodness. But this has to be step by step. It has to be little by little until you come to the point of arrival and then entrance. And you don't walk that journey on your own. You need others to be there with you. And if God wills, then this brings us illumination, contemplation, reflection, understanding, compassion, empathy, and the knowledge of God that is beyond words. Among the most important blessings of words is that you can ask forgiveness. You can do tawbah. And the great awliya of Allah, like Maulana Jalaluddin, blessed be his name, almost everything they do is taken from a hadith, or is taken from the Quran, or it might be taken, from a story of a great wali like Junaid as-Salik or Abu Yazid al-Bistami or something like that. But there is a hadith about two men who were Muslims of our community or some other community before us, and they're condemned on the Day of Judgment to the fire. And then they go to the fire, but one of them speaks to God and is forgiven. So Imam Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, he tells us this hadith. He works on it. And he has a poem called The Man Who Looked Back While on His Way to the Fire. And he's basing this on this hadith. So he says, the guardian angels who used to walk unseen before him and behind him have now become visible, and they drive him to the fire like prison guards, which is true. How many angels do you live with? You have Raqib, you have Atid. They're here or here, wherever they may be. They are there. You never saw them. You have other angels that are with you constantly, that protect you, that help you, that do other things for you, over 100. Okay, but you don't see them, and we don't even pay attention to them. We forget about them totally. We must never disbelieve in them, because that would be kufr. But on the Day of Judgment, you will see them. When you die, your two angels, Raqib and Atid, sit at your grave, and they ask God to forgive you. Okay, and they will be, when you're resurrected, they will be there too. So these people now see their angels who lived out the miserable lives of these two men as they disobeyed God and they did terrible things. Now they've become like policemen who drive them to the fire. So you didn't believe in us? Okay, well, let's see if you believe in us now. And then one of them looks back wistfully. Jalaluddin Maulana, he says, his tears fall from his eyes like the soft rain of autumn before the winter, the rain that's not going to grow anything because the summer's over. Just a mere hope, a tear. What does he have but that? And then in the hadith it says God sends the angels to say, why did he look back? So Rumi also tells us that, and then the man says, God, my Lord, I am 100 times worse than you declared me to be at my judgment. I deserve nothing but the fire. But I had in this wretched heart a hope that never died, that somehow you would show me your loving kindness. I turn to you. He's speaking. That's why it's about words. I turn to you and to your pure grace, not to my actions. I trust in you, not in me. I'm nothing. So then God tells the angels, bring him back. Forgive him. Put him in the garden. He never lost hope in me, even as he walks to the fire. It's a beautiful story, a very meaningful story. And we know that the believers who go to the fire, may we not be among them. And they are a lot. They are hordes of believers, because most believers never figure it out. They live their lives in neglect and heedfulness. But the believer will be released from the fire, and you will wish, and may you never go, that you had never gone. May we not go there. May we realize what this deen is about and wake up while we are here, bi-iznillahi ta'ala. But nevertheless, this man is among the first who will be released from that. And he didn't even go in, but he had that hope. So the tongue then is an amazing thing, and use it as that amazing thing that it is. And it's also very dangerous. The tongue is so easy to use, right? Almost every one of us, some people speak more easily than others. Some have great facility. Others don't have the same facility, but we can all use our tongues, generally speaking, unless there's some obstruction. And the tongue is small in size. It's easy to use, especially if you're speaking your mother tongue. So we usually use our tongues without thinking about what we're doing. And that's a very disastrous thing to do. Therefore, as a rule, our tongues are the most disobedient of all the human faculties that we have. They rattle on, they prattle on, they never get tired. They rush in where angels fear to tread. This is because the tongue is so easy to use, so easy to unleash. And often, especially when we're not talking about what's good, we don't get tired of talking. It costs so little for us to keep it working, the tongue. And therefore, most human beings give it no attention. They pay it no attention. We take lightly whatever we say. And therefore, the tongue is Satan's most successful ploy to use against us and guiding us astray. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, لا يستقيم إيمان العبد حتى يستقيم قلبه ولا يستقيم قلبه حتى يستقيم لسانه. So the Blessed Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the servant of God's Iman will not be right, won't be the way it's supposed to be, won't be straight, it won't be sound, until his or her heart is right, is sound. And his or her heart will not be right or sound until the tongue is sound, until the tongue is right. So you've got to get that straight. And this is one of the most important things for you. No doubt you do that already, but you want to do it all the time. Think about what you are speaking about. Be careful about what you say. There is safety in silence. Wrong speech hurts you. Wrong speech weighs you down. Bad speech harms your heart. And it also chips away at your Iman. Even though the words that you speak seem to be as light as feathers, they seem to disappear in thin air, but they don't. That's not the way reality is set up. You need to learn about the metaphysics of this world, the way this world is really put together. Speech is very, very important. And too much talk fills your heart with worries. That's the least it does. You have worries? One of the best ways that you can overcome your worries is silence. Invoke the name of God. Recite the Quran. Sit and be silent. Think about God. Think about the Prophet ﷺ. But when you talk and 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 call up this person and Twitter that person and text this person, your heart becomes filled with trouble and worries. And of course, there are times when you have to talk. There are times when you have to tell others about the misery that you may feel and the situation that you're in. But you pick those people carefully, and you pick your words carefully. Okay? Don't think that you can remove your troubles and your anxieties by just talking and talking and talking. Tawus, his name means the peacock, and he was one of the greatest of the successors. May Allah be pleased with them all. And he was from the Yemen. The Yemen is a beautiful part of the world. May God protect it in this time of horrible calamities and disasters that are sweeping the world everywhere. But Tawus said, my tongue is a wild beast, sabr. If I were to let it loose, it would eat me alive. Are those beautiful words? Those are the words of a wali of Allah. Look how few they are, but they are worth saying 1,000 times. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, he said, nothing is more deserving of a long prison sentence than your tongue. You need to put your tongue in prison for a long time. So do I. It deserves that. Be careful about what you say. Maulana Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the greatest of all human beings after the prophets and the messengers, what did he used to do? He kept a pebble on his tongue. What a silly thing to do. No? You could buy here in Turkey a precious stone. Right here in the market in Konya, you could get a tiger's eye or something else, polish it, and put it on your tongue. And then when you want to speak, you can't talk. You have to go, well, just a minute. But before you do that, think. And Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, he did that so he cannot speak without thinking. He's got to listen to you carefully. There's a pebble in his mouth. I wish I had that pebble. It must be very blessed. And then before he speaks, he takes it out. Okay? And this is the ijtihad of one of the greatest human beings who ever was, so that what he speaks is right. Let's go back to Tawus the peacock. Great successor, great faqih, great wali of Allah. He says, مَا عَقَلَ دِينَهُ مَا عَقَلَ دِينَهُ مَنْ لَمْ يَحْفَظْ لِسَانَهُ. So he said, he, we can say she as well. In Arabic, whenever we use the male gender, we always imply the female. If we say brother, we mean sister. If we say brotherhood, we mean sisterhood. And our fuqaha talk about that. Unless we mean to say something specifically related to one gender or another, then we specify that. But he says that he or she has no sound intellectual understanding of the deen who does not guard his or her tongue. So when we just talk, as most of us do, and most of our brothers and sisters do, often raising our voices, right? Then it means that we don't have much intellect. And we have no intellectual understanding of the deen. We haven't grasped it. So may we grasp it, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Al-Hasan al-Basri, may Allah be pleased with him, who was one of the greatest of the successors. He's really the master, of the successors, along with Uwais al-Qarani, who's sort of between the companions and the successors. But he said, they, meaning the companions and the successors, and this is also a hadith, they used to say, the tongue of the believer is behind his heart. The tongue of the believer is behind his heart or her heart. If he wants to say something, he reflects on it in his heart. And then, if it's good, his heart lets him say it. Go ahead and speak. It's okay. But the tongue of the hypocrite, and this is often what they do. They compare the believer with the hypocrite. Who was the great believer in Medina? Who was the great believer in Medina? The one who prayed all night? The one who fasted every other day? The one who recited the Quran day and night? Most of them did that. But it's the one who met his brother with joy on his face and a smile and no duplicity in his heart. and no hypocrisy. And they believe that the frowning Muslim who can never smile, who's never really happy with his brothers and sisters, has the stamp of hypocrisy on his face. How many Muslims are like that today? They don't smile, they frown, they're not happy to see anyone, they have a bad opinion of everyone. A lot of them believe that we are Muslims for sure, but I don't know about the rest of these people. They all say La ilaha illallah. They all say Muhammad Rasulullah. If God is content to create weak people as His servants who have failings, whom He will guide and forgive, you're not content to be their brother. You're not content to be their sister. If you can't serve the people that God created and love them, you think you can serve God. And that doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And this is why for the Sahaba to have a clean heart, a good heart, a heart that is filled with joy at the believer, whether that believer is the best or the worst, and to help the person who needs to be helped. This is the sign of belief. But the believer's tongue is behind his or her heart. The hypocrite's tongue is in front of his heart. This is what Al-Hasan al-Basri said. This is what the companions believed. Who taught them? The Prophet ﷺ. If he is concerned about anything, or bothered by anything, or perplexed by anything, he blurts it out. His tongue just says it. And he does not use his or her heart to reflect on it. Okay? This is the way politicians are. That's why did I really say that? If you speak the truth, you don't have to worry about what you said. If you will put your tongue behind your heart, you don't have to worry about what you said, but they're not like that. So may Allah enable us, to follow this guidance. Thank you. So then we begin to speak a little bit about the secrets of silence. Because silence is your friend. Silence is your gift. And speech must come out of silence. And when silence is the way it should be, filled with reflection, filled with thought, silence pollinates your intellect. And then silence gives you beautiful speech. Silence is golden. Speech is silver. Silence is jam'a, gathering. Speech is farq, separation. Silence is power. Speech is weakness. Doesn't mean that it's going to always be weak, and it doesn't mean that it's always going to be silver. It might be gold, but it's got to come out of silence. How could Al-Hasan al-Basri think of these things to say? How could Tawus think of these things to say? How could Abdullah ibn Mas'ud think of these things to say? Because they live in a world of silence that pollinates their intellects. They think about things, and they speak little. And then when they speak, that speech is worth recording until the day of judgment. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man samata naja." Whoever keeps silence will be safe. Whoever keeps silence will be safe. You will succeed. So learn to be silent. And again, we live in the world of plastic words. We live under the reign of plastic words. No denotations, 1,000 connotations. They change like styles. Okay? And we talk, and we talk, and we talk. The talk show. We say whatever we want. We text, we Twitter. Okay? So you have got to learn to bring this under control. And then your intellect will grow, and you will understand your religion with your heart and your intellect. Man samata naja. And this is not stupid silence. This is the silence of men and women who have oceans in their hearts. The Prophet said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Man sarrahu an yaslama falyalzam as-samt." Whoever would be made happy, filled with joy, to be safe on the day of judgment and in this world as well, let him keep silence. So you've got to learn to do this. And again, in our cultures, it's often difficult because, especially in some of our cultures, like that of many Americans, if you don't talk, they think you don't like them. In fact, they think that you dislike them and that you want to hurt them. You know, this is just the way their culture is. They're not all like that. But the thing is, this is why also you have to learn another prophetic sunnah, which no doubt you do: smile. And let that smile radiate the beauty of your heart. Because the smile also speaks for you without saying words. So I do like you. I like to be in your presence. You do have value to me, but I don't have a lot of things to say. And we need to be able to reduce speech. Often, even if we're driving in the car together, and you're silent, and he's silent, and the other person's silent, it's like, what's wrong? You know, who's going to break the ice? Well, there's no ice. Maybe we're all doing dhikr. You know, and in the traditional Muslim world, there would be no problem with that whatsoever. But for us, it puts us on edge because we live in this world where we diffuse the problems we have, the anxieties we have by meaningless speech. Have you ever been to a club, an athletic club, YMCA, whatever it is, and listen to how the people talk? Usually they're just diffusing their anxieties. They're not saying anything. So the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ألا أخبركم بأيسر العبادة وأهونها على البدن الصمت وحسن الخلق. He said, peace be upon him, shall I not inform you about the easiest type of worship? I'd like to know that. The easiest type of worship. How long did you stand in Ramadan? Did your feet hurt? Yes. Did your legs hurt? Yes. Did you get tired? Of course you did. So did I. We're not supposed to be like that, but we're weak. Is there an easier type of worship? We'll also do that one. So he said, let me tell you about the easiest form of worship and the most convenient for the body. Keeping silence. Not hard to do. Keeping silence as an act of worship and having good character. وَخَالِقِ النَّاسَ بِخُلُقٍ حَسَنٍ. Deal with the people, all people, whoever they are, with good character. What a beautiful thing to do. The Prophet said, مَنْ كَانَ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَسْكُتْ. The Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever believes in God in the last day, you believe in God, you believe in the last day, it's real. When is the last day going to be? What are the signs of the day of judgment? Well, that's important. When is your last day? When is your day of judgment? That's practical. Whether we are around to see the final hour or not too likely, and not extremely important, but I have a last day that is coming, and so do you. That's what counts. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. It could be the next 5 minutes. It could be tomorrow. And it doesn't matter how old you are or young, not even how healthy you might be. Okay? So that's what counts. We believe in the last day. And whoever believes in God in the last day, then let him speak good or keep quiet or be quiet. The Prophet said, رَحِمَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا تَكَلَّمَ فَغَنِمْ أَوْ سَكَتَ فَسَلِمْ. May God show special mercy to a person, a servant of God, who speaks and wins great bounty, like Mawlana Jalaluddin. Okay? Or the dhakir, the person who invokes God, or the person who recites the Quran, or who keeps silence and is safe. The Salaf as-Salih, may Allah be pleased with them and make us pleased with them, and let us benefit from them. Of all the things the upright Muslims of the first generations cared about, was it giving fatwa? Was it giving fiqh? Was it saying, this is haram, this is bid'ah, this is wajib? No, that was about 24 of them that did that. And they regarded it to be an affliction that they had to bear because somebody's got to clarify the law. Aisha radiallahu anha, she's one of those. Abdullah bin Mas'ud is another. Ibn Umar is another. Salma is another. And there are others. Okay? But most of them, they don't want to talk about that because they don't want to be judged. But they all know about the heart. Every single one of them knew about the heart. And this is something Imam al-Ghazali makes really clear throughout the whole of the Ihya, which is one of the greatest treasures that God has left for human beings. They are people who cared about their hearts. But they would say, silence, samt, keeping silence, brings together for you 2 excellent traits. Salama in your deen, soundness and safety in your religion, and the ability to understand your companion. It's very important to understand your brother or your sister. That is one of your obligations. Ad-deenun nasiha. This religion is sincere behavior towards others. Counsel. How can you give counsel to people you don't understand? How can you give counsel to people you don't know? If we learn to be quiet, then we begin to learn. Listen to what they say. Listen to what they have to say. Don't be ready to talk. And talk when the time comes to talk. So this is also one of the gifts of the secrets of silence. You begin to understand other people. You begin to have compassion for them and empathy with them. And solitude also helps us to do that. And you should always have a time of solitude. Even if you're a housewife who has many children and many responsibilities, you need a time for yourself when you are silent and when you can just be quiet. So silence also enables us to develop this trait of solitude. And this is the kind of silence that pollinates your intellect and purifies your heart and removes your troubles and removes your anxieties and gives you dignity. Wara'. Wara' is an incredible quality that you have in you because of that precious good that is in you that you've got locked in a safe place. And it enables you to teach and to live taqwa, the fear of God and the consciousness of God. Let's end here with a beautiful statement from the great Caliph Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. May Allah be merciful to him. And when Umar died, As-Suyuti tells us that when they buried Umar ibn Abdul Aziz in Damascus, they saw a piece of paper up in the air, going back and forth, and it came down and down and down and down until it settled on his grave. And they picked it up and it says, Bara'atun min an-nar. You are free of the fire. You are free of the fire. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was one of the greatest of all. And again, this is a letter he wrote to Al-Awza'i, to Imam Malik, to Abu Hanifa, and to, the other great jurists of his time. Abu Hanifa received this letter, Al-Awza'i received it, and many others, Al-Qasim ibn Muhammad and others. So he wrote to them. His letter is 2 lines. And he said, as for what follows, Amma ba'd, whoever calls death to mind frequently, will be content with little in this world. Imam al-Shafi'i, may Allah be pleased with him, is one of the greatest of the great. Imam al-Shafi'i once went into a situation in Medina where 500 questions about involuntary manslaughter were brought to him, and he answered them all. And then he was given gifts from the people of Khorasan and the gifts from the people of Iraq and others, and he began to cry. And in one story, they say Imam Malik was there, and he said, why are you crying? He said, it's because of fear of the world, isn't it? And Imam Shafi'i said, yes. I did this for the sake of God, and they give me this treasure in place of it. Who will protect my heart? And of course, Imam Malik, Shafi'i, Abu Hanifa, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, may Allah be pleased with them, they attained the heights they did because they can keep that world out of their hearts. But he sends this to people like them, Al-Awza'i, because the faqih in particular, he or she has got to beware of the world. So he says, call death to mind all the time, and then you'll be happy with little, and you'll be able to give away what you were given. And then he says, whoever regards his speech to be part of his action, we might say voluntary action. In other words, that's what your speech is. It's a voluntary act. It's a speech act. When you stood up to pray in Ramadan, in Taraweeh, you knew that was a voluntary act. And you did it because you believed in God. And you did it because you wanted His reward. And you knew it's hard, but I'll do it every night. And it gets easier. Okay? And we want to listen to the whole Quran. It's not easy. We know that's an act. I chose to do that act. It's voluntary. Just like giving in charity, going to Umrah, going to pilgrimage. So these things we do, we know these are acts. We're very careful. So he said, never forget that your speech is also a voluntary act. And he says, when you know that, then your speech will be little, except for what concerns you. And they say that dhikr, the invocation of God, is the fasting of the tongue. You know, so if you don't have a pebble, and even if you have a pebble, you can take it out, and you can do dhikr, invocation, the remembrance of God, invoking. You have the power to call upon the name of God. What a special person you are. And God will mention you in the seventh heaven. Okay, and again, who are you? Son of Adam, daughter of Adam. You know, you have got to learn who you are, and you've got to live for that. And you've got to realize that. And if you do that, you change the world. You change the world. So I think our time might be up. Yep, it is. It is. Time up, okay? So we've got these little questions, and I will take them with me, and I think we have a session tomorrow, and maybe the next day we have 2, and we have another day that will also be 2. I think we have 9 in all, and inshallah we'll try to make good use of it. I hope we have time for questions, and I'll try to look at these, and inshallah, Allah bless you and protect you. اللهم وفقنا لما تحبه وترضى وجعلنا من عبيدك السعداء وأمتنا على كلمة الهدى علمنا ما ينفعنا ووفقنا للعمل بما علمتنا به واجعل ما نحن فيه خالصا مخلصا لوجهك الكريم يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا بعده تفرقا معصوما لا شقيا منا ولا محروما. آمين 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 يا رب العالمين. It's a great honor to be in this city, and it's an especially great honor to be in this city with people like you. And may Allah make these blessed days, and may this be one of the great transformations of our lives. You know, that we have a lot of work to do, okay? You know, you live in a time, the last 200 years, everything was done to destroy this religion that is thinkable and unthinkable. The last 200 years have been the real test a weak ummah, then shattered by tests and fitnas and innovations in every way, at a time when we are at our worst and our weakest. And yet, this ummah is amazing, and it has in it people like you. And we have got to bring it back to life in our hearts and to take that gift to our friends and our neighbors and to people everywhere in the world, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. That's what you have to devote your life to. And may Allah give you long life. And may He enable you to use your life really well, no matter what you do. Ameen.